Hey, my name's Chris, and I've been having a problem with too much sound leaking into my home studio from the outside. So basically, I have a problem with sound isolation in my home studio. So I decided to fix that. And I found the main problem, in my case, which is the door. So that's actually after I've done some of the soundproofing. It's still in its raw form. I haven't decorated it and meshed it with the vibe of the room, but that'll come later. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to make this door, and you're going to follow me with the build, and I'm going to tell you every step of the way what you're going to need to do and how effective it actually is. So at the end of the video, I'll show some test results of the amount of sound isolation I was able to get using a sound meter. So this is actually what my interior doors look like. So just so you know, my door is probably going to be different than your door. So please consider that when you're making your own DIY soundproof door. And here, this is what the door looks like afterwards. And here, I'm going to actually show you some more detail about what the door looks like. If you look at the door, you can see that there is a layer of mass load vinyl on it. Then after that, there's some weatherproofing, as well as a thin strip of rubber going around the frame of it to add a little bit more depth. And then on top of that, there is MDF board, 3/4 inch, that I used on top of the rubber to add even more depth and mass to the door. So having seen the door now, let's jump into the materials we're going to need to build this. First thing we're going to need is the mass loaded vinyl. And this is what we have what I'm using in Korea. I was able to find these squares is 50 centimeters by 50 centimeters of this vinyl, and it's loaded with some kind of powder, like cement powder, rock powder. Not quite the same thing that you're probably gonna find in America, but it's actually about maybe 1.5, 2 pounds for this like really thin sheet, which when you add about 10 of these to the door, it took about 10 to cover the size of my door. That adds quite a bit of weight to it. So that's the first item. Next thing we're gonna need is some rubber. And I used 1/8 inch thick and 1 inch wide rubber strips to frame around the door. Next thing we're gonna need is MDF board. And after that, we're gonna need some weather stripping. We're gonna need some silicone that cures, that doesn't not get too hard. It's still flexible once it's cured. And after that, we need some clamps, wood clamps. If you don't have those, tape will work. That's what I used. So next you're gonna need some tools. I need a drill and some kind of saw. I just use a hand saw. So that was the cheapest thing literally I can find. So, but if you have some other materials, that's even better actually. So let's jump into the steps on how to actually make the door. You need to take 2 measurements. You need to take the measurement of your actual door, and you need to measure the actual size that your MDF board will cover. Next thing we need to do is just put on the vinyl. It's simple enough. Just peel off the adhesive back. I forgot to mention this earlier, but the thing about this mass loaded vinyl is that it has an adhesive back, which allows you to just stick it onto the door. As you're putting on this mass loaded vinyl, you need to actually cut out a little space for the door handle, and if your door does have it, a door stop. So now after that, we're going to put on the rubber strips. As you can see, we just put a strip around the edges of the door, all the way around it. And that step's simple enough. So once you get that done, you can go to the next step. So the next thing we need to do is get the MDF board ready. Now this is the hardest part because there's a few things we need to make sure of. The MDF board is actually going to be bigger than the actual size of the door because it's going to go over the gap between the door frame and the door. As you can see, there's a little indentation in the door frame that makes it flush with the door, and we need to measure that so we can cover that entire area with the MDF board. Now you only need to do this on the side with the door handle and the top. On the bottom, you need to measure down to the floor and subtract a few millimeters, or like 1/8 of an inch, just so the MDF board does not rub against the bottom. So there's a few things that you need to consider. First, I took the measurements of the door plus the kind of area of the door frame that is flush with the door, and just take that measurement and cut it in half height-wise. So now you should have 2 pieces of MDF board that will cover the area of the door. One thing we need to be careful about is that you don't want the MDF board extend on the side with the hinges, because if it goes too far over on that side, it's going to affect when you open the door and it's going to rub against the door frame. The next things we need to consider are the holes for the door handle and the door stop. So what I did for this is I measured from the edge of the door to the center of the door handle. Then I took the door handle off. Then I took the door handle and put it on the center, the place where I marked the center on the MDF board. And then I just made a circle and I tried to cut around that. And here, this is kind of the result that you can see. And I pretty much did the same thing with the door stop part. So the hardest part is making sure that you put it in the right spot. And you're gonna need to also make some spaces for the hinges. On my door, at least, the hinge goes over the actual door a little bit, so I had to cut maybe 1/2 inch in. Okay, that should be good for the MDF, and it should be good to go. Next thing we need to do is put on the silicone and attach the MDF board to the actual door. And you can see there's some spots where in the middle where it's a little bit more mass-loaded vinyl, so it can kind of be a little bit closer to the MDF board when I put the adhesive. So I was thinking maybe it might add a little bit more support. So the next thing we need to do is put on the adhesive and then put on the MDF board. And on this part, just make sure everything is level and make sure your door can close after you attach it, the MDF board. We don't want it to rub against the floor on one side, and we also don't want it to be not level when we put on the top half of the door later. So after you get the bottom half of the door on, you need to let it cure. So I gave it like 48 hours to cure, and then I repeated the same process for the top section. While I was editing the video, I realized I skipped over the part where I should be talking about the weather stripping. So the weather stripping should go around the edge of the MDF board that overhangs off the edge of the door, as you can see in this video right here. So I hope that answers any questions you had about the weather stripping. Damn, that was a lot of work, and it's done. And I'm glad you were able to stick around to the end. So let's see some results on how actually effective this door is. So I'm gonna show you that right now. I'm gonna play some pink noise and use a sound level meter to show you how much of a dB drop we got, and you're gonna be super surprised. So let's see. Damn, did you see that? We got a 29 dB drop on the room with the DIY soundproof door. So, and I'm sure you can hear the difference. I was using my camera mic, so the quality is not the best, but when I was editing this, I was able to see the huge difference in the waveform from when I was in the room versus when I was outside of the room, and comparison to between the two doors. So that's all for the video, actually. So if you found this video useful or valuable, please hit the like and subscribe button. I plan on putting out a lot more of these types of videos. Also, I have a question for you. Do you plan on making one of these doors? If so, leave a comment. And that's it for the video. Until next time, I'll see you.